Hello, everyone. Welcome. So we're officially in September now, and where I'm at, the weather is quite beautiful. So there's a couple things I wanted to talk about today, and I think the first thing that I want to preface this with, and this really goes for anything that I share or I believe anybody else shares, is that there are so many paths to the one, right? There are so many, because there are so many souls, there are so many, there are so many of us. There are so many ways of learning and evolving and remembering ourselves back to the truth of who we are in connection with divine source, in connection with our wholeness. And for me, I believe every path is relevant and holds whatever is needed and necessary for every person, right? So I don't see that there's one way. And oftentimes what I've seen over the last couple decades is oftentimes some of the ways will intermingle, and merge and maybe diverge again. But my sense is that ultimately we're all heading to the same place, and we're all moving towards the same truth, that same ultimate, all that is oneness. And there are so many ways of talking about it, so many different lingos and language and experiences based on the path and the trajectory that each soul has chosen. So for me, I started out in a very traditional Eastern Shakti Kundalini tradition, and then it sort of merged into a Christed path, and then it merged into the Ascension path that we're in now. And now I really don't even use Ascension as much anymore, because I just see it as this deepening of embodiment of the remembrance that is taking us home to our truth. And yet, if we could snap our fingers or, use our mental construct of that oneness, then we probably wouldn't have the path that has a lot of experiences and the life experiences that we're here to learn. And most of us do not have that instant or the construct that is equally embodied in remembering and knowing who we are without a shadow of a doubt. And if we know that, if we've reached that point, then we're living in a very different expression of the divine and in our soul essence. But I do believe that's where we're all going, and so there isn't a right or wrong. We're all moving in the same direction, ultimately. So with that being said, from my perspective of embodiment and, within this ascension trajectory, raising our frequencies and really coming to know ourselves in more expanded and full ways, the planet is also, we could say, going through that as well. And so I've talked a little bit in a couple past videos and in a couple classes how the frequency on this planet is changing, the magnetics are changing, and we're feeling this in our physical body because we are in fact a part of this physical body of the earth, as well as the energetics of our beingness and the energetics of our planet. So we have energies that are moving from more of that earth and water along the astrological impacts on our on everything, that's going to be moving into air and fire. So we can glean from that that perhaps for many of us, we're going to feel things speeding up even more so. And I know for myself, for some clients, for friends, this last couple months has been just pretty intense. A lot of crumbling, a lot of tower moments, and a lot of sitting on a new precipice of really, really knowing on a deep level that the old paradigms, the old structures are not working anymore, and the new structures either haven't come in or we don't know how to step into them. Part of stepping into them, fortunately and unfortunately, begins to require that we let a lot of the inner past expressions of our life go through their tower moment, crumble, which puts us into that place of the unknown, where we really don't know what's coming. We really don't know how to operate within the 3D paradigm that is still intact, and it is still governing a lot of our day-to-day existence, as well as we're recognizing that it isn't working. Like, it isn't working on deep internal levels, on our belief systems, on our emotional bodies. The actions that need to be taken just are not, it's not just that they're not resonating, but they're feeling deeply counter to the evolutionary expression of our souls embodying and presencing. So I did a couple videos over the new moon about, embodiment and how mostly we tend to be very scattered and taken out of our physical bodies. We don't have our soul power through being anchored in our deepest self, mosquito. And that when this is the case, we can feel more fragmented, frazzled, kind of hyped up, so to speak, distracted easily. So this is kind of where I want to go with our talk today, is that what we're seeing in there's collective pockets, right, with different avenues into not only embodiment, but ways of really supporting the up-leveling that's happening and the quickening of the energies, that if we aren't anchored and really grounded in our root center to the earth, then we're feeling the rubber meeting the road in really uncomfortable ways. And so, earth-based systems are starting to come back, getting more grounded, not only in, our I'm a little scattered today myself as well. It's like this back to the earth movement, right? Really paying attention to our food sources, how our food is being grown, coming into collectives and community that support things locally. The need for our energetic bodies and our physical body to have more earthing, to be more connected to nature, to be coming into practices and movement practices that create a deepening into our physical form. And for me, over the last couple years, that's been what I've been starting to integrate into working with clients as a way of allowing specific templates and embodiment practices to really support this pulling in, so to speak, of our soul presence and anchoring these energies down into the earth, anchoring these higher frequencies so that the transmutation and transformation takes place on deeper levels, so that our heart is really feeling the transformation and expansion, so that we're really being able to connect into deeper and higher levels of faith and trust in divine source, in that unified field, right? That wholeness. And when we can start anchoring that within our body and being, we start to come into more of a subtle experience. So this is what I want to talk about, is subtle versus gross. And you know, gross not meaning it's not a judgment, right? It's not a good or bad. It's a level of frequency, it's a level of density. We could say that, you know, this jar is a gross material, right? It's dense, it's hard, it's solid. Our bodies in many ways have a level of density, so it's you can measure, we can measure the solidity, okay? And the subtleties are more intangible, and they tend to be softer. They tend to not be as overt and obvious, and they tend to be more the more of the essence of things, lighter frequencies. They're not going to force themselves, their presence or their awareness onto us, nor are they going to necessarily demand our attention outside of us. Whereas a lot of the denser frequencies, they carry a level of consciousness, not always, but there can be a tendency that they carry a level of consciousness that extracts our consciousness from our body. We're not as present, we're not as grounded, we speed up more, we're more scattered, all of those things that I talked about in the Are You Embodied video, so I'm not going to go over that one again. But what I want to talk about is the subtleties. So for the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, the guidance that I've had coming through has been more around connecting to the subtles, connecting to those moments of presence, those moments of coming into relational intimacy, which is a foundation of what I work with, right? With the plants, with the elements, with nature, with everything that we're doing, the consciousness of the water that we're drinking, the food that we're eating. When we begin to cultivate those practices, we begin to come into a simplicity. The simplicity of life slows things down and connects us more to natural time, the sacred rhythm of cycles and seasons and our own inner needs, right? Our own inner rhythms that guide us, that support us in maintaining our health, our vitality, levels of peace and calm within. So there was a beautiful, and I don't have my notebook here with me right now, but I'm just going to sort of like paraphrase what I was given a few weeks ago about um, the subtleties of love, right? The subtleties of love when we start um, coming into deeper levels of self-love and really self-honor and really honoring our uniqueness and the fact that, in my opinion, we all are deeply unique and special in our own right and in our own ways. And the more that we fall in love with all of us, we come into contact with that essence that has a signature that's very subtle, that carries the blueprint, the divine blueprint that activates within us, that connects us to our wholeness more and more. But we have to bring ourselves back from a lot of the externalized third dimension ways in which we're pulled out of our center. It's finding this new balance of mindfulness, treating the denser dimensional reality that we are also living in. Many of us are living in abridged reality, right? That higher frequency and this. And it's the continuing to untether from the densities, from those chains that bind our consciousness and our belief systems, that keep us locked into fear and doubt, that keep us separated from the wholeness that we are. And part of this is learning how to find those vehicles, those allies that support us in creating a coherent field, a coherent mind, so that our brain waves, right, are stabilized and fluid in the right phases and stages. We need the beta brain waves to be active, to be in that active thinking. But we're moving more and more into these alpha and theta brain waves, which is the natural time brain waves. So as we continue to move forward, as things move more into air and fire, it's almost like we're going to need to counter, right? So when we've been in this phase of earth and water, this grounding, right, of that density, we've been moving through those higher frequencies, that ascension process, which that earth helped to support and ground us. It's flipping now. So now we're going to be moving into, there's going to be more of that speed up, and we're going to need to mindfully be cultivating the embodiment of the speed, the intensity, what are the words, right? The frequencies that are going to want to move like this, right? Whoo, like that old ascension sensation and feeling. And now we're going to need to be anchoring it in so that we can continue and deepen our sense of presence, our sense of peace, our sense of really picking and choosing mindfully. How do we move through our days in a deep alignment, connected to the divine, connected to our deeper truths, our deeper needs, and not the projections of the conditioning of the world around us, and not fall prey to those things that pull us out. So on the new moon call, I talked just a little bit, and I'm going to wind this up. I talked a little bit about technology in general, right? The technology, it's rolling out faster and faster. Some of it is going to be powerful in really beautiful, helpful ways. Some of it is going to be, we could say, shiny new things, right? To keep us engaged outwardly. So technology has the propensity for most to pull our energy out of us, to pull us out of our body, out of our being. And when we're on a lot of these social media platforms, they're quick, little snippets here, little snippets there, so that our ability to really stay present and focused and take in information more to depth, to be choosing what things really resonate for us, what is speaking truth, and what are we doing just to fill time and space. Because we're not able to anchor into our physical presencing, our deeper connection with our own soul wisdom, with the subtleties of life, and the sacredness of simplicity, and recognizing that we don't, the sun is coming, there we go, I'm going to do this for a minute, the recognition that creating forms of distraction for ourselves on an ongoing basis is in detriment to our evolution and to our ability to really, really continue that intimacy with all that we are and where we're going in the subtle realms, to be able to guide, to tune in and be guided through the subtle realms, which if we are, I don't know what word I want to use for this, but if we are more acclimated to gross frequencies, it's going to be harder to really feel the beauty, the simplicity, the fullness, the joy of the subtleties around us. We may miss them completely. So we're moving into a phase of sensitization because we have been programmed deeply into desensitization. And we can look at this in a number of ways that I don't need to go into right here. But, so the call of Source, the call of the divine, the call of our soul, the call of our next level is to sensitize to the power of the subtle. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I got off track. So when I was being told about, these new levels of love that we have access to, it's that they have the subtlety of threads of silk, and that our next level is going to be to attune to that subtlety, that almost fragility, but it's actually much stronger than the gross, than the physicality. It's deeper. It harnesses more spiritual energy. So we're moving into this subtlety of like a thread of silk. And I'm just going to leave this. And there's beauty and there's essence to that there's a shimmer and an iridescence. And when we can like sit with that, there's an expansion of our own essence that can start to reveal to us. So the subtle is going to be kind of the new frontier, right? And it's not going to feel quite as fun right away or exciting right away because it's not going to activate the nervous system in the old ways anymore. So, so, depending on how activated you are, the subtle might be really hard to sink into at first without um, anchoring it in a practice, without orienting it into something that can support that ongoing deepening. So I'm feeling quite in love with the new direction that we're going, and I know that many are feeling this call for simplification, for deepening our connection to the subtle, to softness, right? To true strength and true vulnerability, um, and that deeper intimacy of our own relationship and our relationship with life. So the sun is creeping in on me, and I'm going to go ahead and end. Um, so that's it. I hope that this speaks to you. If it doesn't, then that's okay as well. We all are on our path, the path that's right and true for us. So have a beautiful rest of your day, your evening, whatever it is, and I will see you soon. All right. Blessings.